Greetings once again, Gordon Causey, as it always is, or if you prefer, Gordy Canuck, one of my nicknames. It's the name I use on Facebook. I wanted to do a video explaining the Canadian political system to any Americans. The Canadian election having just taken place, it's made the news. CNN, CBC, CNBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, all the major networks in America and internationally are reporting on the Canadian election. And having spent 10 years growing up in the United States, I spent 10 years growing up in New York City, Staten Island, New Jersey, Bergen County, and in Portland, Oregon. And so I have a pretty firm grasp on the American political system, and I know the Canadian political system very well, studied poli-sci or political science at university. So I'm not saying I know every minute little detail, but in broad strokes, I understand both systems very well, and the Canadian system better than the American. I just wanted to do this video to try and explain it so that Americans can understand. Americans, of course, you have the three branches of the executive. You have the House of Representatives, often referred to as Congress, although that's a bit of a misnomer because Congress is actually both the House of Representatives and the Senate. So you have the House of Representatives, 450-ish, 460. I'm not sure exactly how many seats there are in your House, but it's somewhere around that number. And then you have your Senate, which is 100 members. And then you have the president. You have three branches of the executive. And for a law to become law in the United States, it has to pass through all three. It has to be approved by the House of Reps. It has to be approved by the Senate. And if those two hurdles are crossed, then the bill is handed to the President of the United States. Once he signs it, then it is a law. If he refuses to sign it, that is called a veto, and it does not become law. In Canada, we have a much different system. In a fashion, you can look at it this way. We only have the House of Representatives. That's not completely true, but practically it's true. It's not precisely true, but in practical terms, it is true. I'll explain. When a piece of legislation in Canada is proposed by the governing party, it is introduced to what we call our House of Commons. There are 343 seats in the House of Commons. And whichever party has the most seats is the governing party. And the leader of that party is the prime minister. We do not elect our prime minister directly. We just voted in Canada. I live in what we call an electoral district, sometimes called a riding. And my riding where I live is called Northumberland Clark. And on my ballot, there were seven names representing six different political parties, and there was one individual running as an independent. And I'm voting on who I want to send to Ottawa to occupy a seat in the House of Commons. And in my riding, a conservative candidate won. And then so in a fashion, when we just had an election in Canada, it was like having 343 different elections because there are 343 electoral districts or ridings, and each ballot in each of those 343 ridings is different. The seven names that were on my ballot did not appear on the ballot in any one of the other 342 ridings. And so at the end of the election, what happened is 169 Liberal members won a seat. I forget the numbers exactly for the remaining parties. The Conservatives, I think, got somewhere in around 144. The Bloc Québécois, which is our political system is very different from yours. The Bloc Québécois is a party that only runs candidates in the province of Quebec. and they try and advocate for special status, special interest, only concerned about Quebec, not Canada as a whole. And then there's the NDP. They had 7 seats, and then we have a Green Party, like you do, that got 1 seat. And so to have a majority of 343 seats, an absolute majority would require 172 seats. Mark Carney, who's the leader of the Liberal Party and ergo the Prime Minister of Canada, uh, they have 169. They're 3 seats short of a majority. So anytime they propose legislation, they need either 3 Conservatives, 3 Bloc Québécois, 3 NDP to join in with them, and the bill passes. And sadly, Mark Carney is not going to have any trouble getting legislation passed. He will be able to get the support of 3 NDP or 3 Bloc Québécois members easily. That's just reality. But I'm talking, the purpose of this video is how are the differences between our political systems. So we also have a Senate like you do, like Americans do. But the American Senate is elected, whereas in Canada, it is appointed. The Prime Minister of the day, whoever happens to occupy the Prime Minister's office, when a seat becomes vacant available in the Senate, the Prime Minister appoints an individual, and they can serve in that position as a senator until the age of 75. And so as seats become available, Mark Carney now will be the one appointing them. However, the Senate cannot propose legislation. Our Senate is sometimes referred to as the Chamber of Sober Second Thought. They are there to review. So after legislation is introduced into the House of Commons, has to go through a number of steps. There's a first reading, a second reading. It can go through committee hearings. Then it'll come up for votes. There's a first vote and a second vote. And if it passes that second vote, then the bill is sent over to the Senate and the process repeats. There again is first reading, second reading, committee hearings, and votes. However, most often the Senate, they approve whatever the House of Commons puts forward. More often than not, they simply approve it. It goes through all that rigmarole. They justify their existence, but it is approved. On occasion, they will propose amendments. They will kick it back to the House of Commons and say, we propose that you make these subtle, small, or significant. We suggest these changes. And at that point, it's up to the governing party whether they want to act on the recommendations of the Senate or not. And if they choose not to act on those recommendations and make any changes to the legislation, then they kick it back to the Senate, and invariably the Senate then approves it, and it's still not a law. It doesn't go to a president, rather it goes to it's called the Governor General, who right now is a woman. I believe her name is Simon. We've been changing them quite frequently lately. And the Governor General is appointed again by the Prime Minister of the day, although Carney has not yet appointed our current Governor General. Our current Governor General was appointed by former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. But at any rate, what happens then is the Governor General has to sign it. Once the Governor General has signed the legislation, then it becomes law, and we refer to the Governor General's signature that is referred to as royal assent. And that is because Canada is referred to as a constitutional monarchy. We have what it's called the Westminster system of parliamentary democracy, and the head of the government of Canada is, in point of fact, King Charles. However, we're not going to send every piece of legislation across the Atlantic Ocean to England for Chuck to sign it. Rather, what we do is he has his representative, the Governor General, and she, in this case, it's a she, signs on his behalf. So, hope that was instructive. Any thoughts, comments, questions, queries? If you think I got anything wrong, put it down below. But basically, so the Mark Carney, who we just elected as prime minister, it's kind of akin to the American leader of the House of Representatives. So when Republicans have the majority of the seats in the House of Representatives, it's a Republican who is the leader of the House. Well, our leader of the House is the Prime Minister. And really, that's the only legislative body in Canada that matters because we don't have the American system of checks and balances. So, again, I welcome your thoughts, your views, your opinions, your commentary, and I invite you also to like, subscribe, share if you want. If you think I explained this reasonably well, I hope I did a decent job, and we'll talk to you again. Hope you enjoy my content.